Sale figures can be false positives. When you look at the numbers of sales for Pokemon games that they've had on the Switch, naturally you're gonna assume that Pokemon is growing. Because the numbers look like they're growing and improving, the likelihood of any change that's positive becomes an abstract possibility. But it's important to look a little bit deeper. When you look at how many games Pokemon have sold and compare that to the corresponding consoles sold or shipped numbers, I wouldn't necessarily classify the market as growing or getting bigger. In fact, I'd say that Pokemon has relatively stayed at the same level, or in some cases has even declined from previous numbers in the past. Now, I don't think Pokemon's trajectory has been an issue for previous games, especially when you look at some of the unfair criticisms such as too much water in a remake of a game that had the same amount of water. But when you consider some of the recent reviews and fan reception to the last two main series generation titles, I'd say there's a lot to be desired in terms of quality and progression for the series. It's unfortunately fell victim to the same issue most games nowadays do. With the release now and fix later model, games are generally hitting the market despite the issues being known. So instead of fixing the problem and delaying the release, it goes out and has a 50GB day one update that sometimes only half solves the problem. Now, I don't necessarily blame Nintendo or Game Freak for their one main series title release a year when trying to look at it objectively as a person. After all, not to get too bleak, but we live in a capitalist society where profitability is the main objective. So, releasing a game every year to profit on a loyal fanbase who continue to buy the games despite the flaws, and yes, this does include myself, is a very easy corporate decision to make. Bear in mind, we can't necessarily claim that Pokemon has never had a problem with bugs. The original games themselves are well known for their incredibly buggy programming that allow arbitrary code execution so that the game can be bent to your will. The major difference between Pokemon many years ago to current times, however, is the fans now have an expectation of quality that has risen in line with the improvement of technology over time. This makes glaring graphical and gameplay runtime issues more frustrating, especially when you consider not only the advancement of technology, but the achievement of games that are on the same console as Pokemon, such as the Legend of Zelda games on the Switch. The major tipping edge for Pokemon in this regard is the issues featured through Scarlet and Violet. Now, I have covered these games multiple times in the past, so I'm going to try and stop myself from regurgitating the same thing. So please check out this video for a bit more of a breakdown on some of the positives and negatives of the games. Now, there are both graphical and performance issues within Scarlet and Violet that have generally frustrated fans and critics alike. From a personal perspective, I want to make it clear that I don't believe in the graphical ghost hunting ideas in games, where things need to be the most beautiful looking thing ever while your character's hair blows in the wind, or you can see the water glisten from far away. For myself, personally, I feel like it's a very counterproductive exercise, and it ends up sacrificing a lot of effort in game development. However, I do feel that functionality is the most important part of a game, and that in particular is a serious point of concern for the franchise going forward when you consider the issues of Scarlet and Violet. When the issues appear to the level that they have in Generation 9, it unfortunately takes away from the positives the games have achieved. You don't really end up discussing the good points of the games, things such as a bit more freedom to follow your path, some new fun and interesting Pokemon, or the introduction of auto battling to earn XP, granted a bit less than normal. Unfortunately, it's mostly painted with the negative brush because of the overwhelming issues it's faced. Now, if you're like me and you've been around for a while with the Pokemon franchise, you will definitely know that this is a natural occurrence with Generation releases, that they tend to get criticism no matter what they do. I know Generation 5 is now loved, but it was heavily criticised for the no availability of old Pokemon from the beginning of the games. Generation 8 was Dexit year, which dominated the entire release. Hardly any generation has been free from criticism, so it's nothing new. However, the tone of the criticism for this feels a little different from the previous ones. With the technological advancements and the success of Pokemon over the years, we have reached a breaking point where the sacrifice of quality for quantity has become a serious detriment on the series as a whole. As such, the only solution for Pokemon's current plan is to take a break in their yearly schedule, something that I feel will not only improve things for the developers but the fans as well. Now, you may wonder, why did Pokemon have this model of one release a year? Well, when you're as successful as Pokemon is, the pressure naturally increases to release games that are not only top quality, but much more frequent because fans want more. In 12 years, we've had only one break year with no Pokemon main series release. And and the year that has been missed is widely believed to be the year that Pokemon Z was going to come out. When you consider the general release schedule of the third games beforehand, it kinda ties up that it would go there. I actually think that's pretty poetic when you think about it. The problem with this frequency is as the quantity demand increases, the quality is still expected to be at the top, but to hit a top quality product you need time. Time is something you do not have when you're releasing a game every year from the main series. Never mind any sub-series games that the main teams are involved in. That pressure most likely led to the decision to subcontract out the development of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl for 2021. Bear in mind, Game Freak have worked on every release for Pokemon since 1996. But for the first time, a game was going to go to another developer, though some of the team was still involved in the project. The acknowledgement of a high workload is important because they could see that they had too much on their plate, especially with Legends Arceus in development as well. As a new title and a new style game, this was uncharted territory for the developers. They now had to make a main series game that did not follow the normal format but also stick to the release schedule of the main series games a year. That unfortunately led to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl not being too well received by fans. Now, to be clear, I don't necessarily think that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are the worst games ever made, despite whatever title I had to put on YouTube, because that's just how YouTube works, unfortunately. I generally feel the games were more lackluster compared to the other generation remakes, even Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Now, while this decision harmed Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it definitely benefited Legends Arceus, which has been the best received Pokemon game in years, and has captured fans with its different style, new Pokemon forms, and a new look at the franchise. The issue is, only a month after the release of Legends Arceus, we had the full reveal of Generation 9's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The reveal placed a date of November 2022, which was just 9 months later from Legends Arceus. So, you may have thought that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's development was subcontracted out so the team could work on a new style project. It was actually done so the team could work on not only Legends Arceus, but Generation 9 as well. No matter how talented a person is, that's an incredibly ambitious plan within the time frame they had. To achieve their goal, they subcontracted out a main series game which they'd never done before, in order to work on two projects at the same time that were due to release in the same year. And these were new projects. Generation 4's remake were, well, remakes. There's already a base layer to follow and to use in the development of the games. In the space of just 12 months, we ended up getting a remake, a new project style, and an entire new generation. This is a completely broken model of demand that's not sustainable as a team. Bearing in mind, one development was shipped out to allow two other projects to be worked at the same time, and no matter what team they gave it to, when one company has developed an entire franchise from start to finish, they are definitely going to struggle to meet the expectations of any fan. I liken it to the idea of a TV series where in Series 7 they change most of the well-liked cast. They might keep a couple around part-time. The new could be good, but the connection and intertwined elements of the previous cast is going to be unbeatable. Now, of course, something that played into this decision was also the anniversary, which further amplified the pressure. But at the same time, I don't want to use these time constraints to absolve criticism either, especially Generation 9 when it comes to the functionality issues. It's important accountability is placed on all those involved, so we can look at acknowledging the issues that we need to tackle going forward. But at a minimum, we can at least see the context and how we've managed to reach this mess with the current model. Now, if a break is going to be implemented for a year, there's three core groups that this would affect. It would affect the developers, the shareholders, and the fans of the series. A break is going to allow for the team behind Legends ZA to plan and invest the correct amount of time to make it successful. We can get back to basics within development. Time is not on a crunch for them, so the pressure shouldn't feel as bad. Now, time doesn't necessarily fix issues. It's important that time is used effectively and efficiently in order to achieve this. But mistakes are less likely to happen if the pressure isn't as constant of every second of the day, simply to try and meet this model of a yearly release. A break of 1 year isn't going to hurt Pokemon's bottom line either. To be successful at this stage, the games do not need to carry the weight of the series anymore in terms of money. As of 2024, the franchise has earned over $80 billion in selling merchandise alone. This includes the TCG, Build-A-Bears, toothbrushes, you name it, the world is mad for Pokemon. To try and put those numbers into perspective, if we were to look at the 10 most valuable sports teams in the world, and buy them at what they are believed to be valued at, we would still have a solid 12 billion left over to spend on whatever we wanted. Bear in mind nowadays you're gonna struggle to walk into a store and not see Pokemon branded merchandise. This isn't just your toy stores, but your stationery shops, supermarkets, and heck, you can even get branded trainers at this point. At the start of the series, it was important the games did well in terms of sales so that Pokemon could earn its keep. But it's not as important as the merchandise line is nowadays. So that's your shareholders happy as the franchise is still making lots of money. But what about the fans? Well, a break could allow a bit of revitalization whilst waiting for the next games. If you've been on my channel before, you'll know that I love a good sports comparison, but I'm gonna move away from football ones and do an American football comparison instead. The season usually starts in September and ends in February. It's incredibly short in time compared to something like baseball that has 166 games. Your team in January could finish 1-16 and the shocking display will anger you as a fan, but then you'll have 8+ months to wait for the next season to start. So you've had a good break. I know at the time you might have heard some positive news. By the time opening night hits, you're once again optimistic and excited for what's coming next. Think of no main series Pokemon game in 2024 like that. We get a bit of a break from the constant releases every year, a chance to build excitement with a bit of news released here or there, or maybe a trailer every so often. This is much better than finishing a game and finding out another main one is on its way in 9 months. Well, for some anyways. You might want quantity and more content, but it's important the quality is there first. I'd try and classify this as an absence makes the heart grow fonder idea. A bit of time not having to deal with negative issues of the games allows the series to build a bit more hype for the next games, and that could be the key difference in the purchase of one. Now, for myself personally, I'm happy for it to take as long as possible to release. 2024 is currently off, but is 2025 had to be as well? As long as we got a top quality game by the end of it, I'd be happy to accept that. In general, I think gaming needs to remove these half-baked games. Fan demand will always be high, and some people will want the next game as soon as possible, but quality product takes quality time. We can't rush these things anymore, or we're gonna end up with another 3.5 score out of 10 for over 3,000 reviews from fans. It looks like Pokemon Legends ZA is gonna get the time of its own to be developed without any other main projects going. Well, that we know now anyways. We're going to end up coming back to this clip in a few months' time and the Generation 5 remakes have been revealed. It doesn't need to get rushed, and that's a relief. We're bringing back Mega Evolution while being set in Generation 6, which is a nice twist from what we were expecting with the next remakes or even Generation 10. Granted, I did half predict that there was going to be a possibility in my previous video of the next Legends game, so make sure to check that out. Keep the news down in my opinion. Focus on the game and make it great. Slowly build a bit of momentum and fan expectation, especially considering it's around one of the best cities within Generation 6. The shareholders are going to be happy, Pokemon is profitable even with the break, developers get more time, and fans don't have to be frustrated with the release not hitting expectations because it came out too early. It's a good thing Pokemon will not release a main series game in 2024, in my opinion anyways. Thanks for watching everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think about Pokemon not releasing a main series game or DLC in 2024. Before I sign off, I want to say a special thank you to everyone. We hit 1,000 subscribers this week. I'm incredibly grateful for the support and interactions I get on this channel. I have many ideas in the pipeline and I am excited to share them with everyone. Until next time, see you guys.